Welcome to the Live Up podcast, where we revisit, review, and score the movies from our youth to see if they live up. I'm Jess Latterman.
And I'm Amanda Treat.
Some quick announcements, some fun admin. I know that we all love it. We do have a blog, liveuppod.com. We're at Live Up Pod on all the socials, yada, yada, yada. So check us out. It'll also help if you like or comment on this podcast in iTunes or your platform of choice. So that'll be awesome.
We trust you, the listeners of the podcast, to leave much better comments than some of the comments we've been getting recently from the non-listeners.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Amanda.
Yes.
We did have some trolling, so I think we've made it as a podcast. We've had some internet trolling from our previous episode on Indiana Jones. Some folks were not happy about two ladies commenting on their favorite movie, and they said as much. So,
we pissed off the Star Wars bros.
I know we did.
Okay, on to today's episode. We are reviewing the film that introduced us Americans to an unknown French-Canadian singer, Celine Dion. Fun fact, she and I share a birthday.
Woo.
Even funner fact, our birthday was yesterday.
Woo! Happy birthday!
Today's movie is 1991's animated version of Beauty and the Beast. Jess, do you have history with this movie?
So I do remember seeing this in the theater because I think it came out in 91. So we were 10 or 11 at the time. I guess I remember feeling kind of sophisticated when it was nominated for an Oscar. So not even just nominated for an anime, because I don't think they had an animated category. But I think this actually made me interested in the Oscars because I was like, oh, this movie that was made for me as a 10-year-old was, or 11-year-old, was nominated for an Oscar. I mean, this is one that I think I watched a lot. I loved it as a kid, for sure.
Did you guys have that big Disney VHS clamshell? It was 100%. Like all the plastic that they could possibly find put into one case for a VHS tape.
I definitely had that. I almost wish I still did. It might still be in my parents' house somewhere.
I think if I check my parents' basement, it's still.
Oh my God. You could probably buy it online. But so it's not as much a history, it's just a memory. And I have watched this with my own kids a couple times now. We're going to obviously get into that. And I'll just share that when I wanted to rewatch it again for us to record, I was actually on an Amtrak train on the way back from a work event. And I was like, oh, I'll just watch it on the train. And didn't really think about the fact that I'm on like the Acela. And some of my coworkers are getting up to go to the cafe car and you can see what's on people's screens.
Jess, are you watching children's cartoons?
I have like Beauty and the Beast stuff on my screen.
Business class of the Acela.
The woman sitting next to me who was a rando I didn't know. She looks, in her 30s, and she was giving me like some side eye. She was trying not to look at my screen, but she
should have been like, this is a Best Picture nominee. I will have you know.
I should have just turned and been like, you want to watch? But I was sort of mildly embarrassed to watch it on Amtrak. But yeah, so that's so it's not exactly that. That's history just from this week. But all right, so what's
so I watched it at 6 a.m. and we'll get into why in just a second.
But I actually was happy that you started us on our Disney revisiting journey.
This is our first Disney movie.
It's our first Disney movie. I was excited to rewatch it. Maybe not on an Amtrak, but I was excited. Why did you pick this one?
All right, so quick story. I saw this movie before opening weekend.
I mean, you are so cool.
My friend Jada and her mom had tickets to the critics preview somehow, which I imagine they were always winning contests off the radio. So I think they won the tickets that way by calling.
Oh, wow. Old school.
Yeah. And they invited me along. And when we got there, they had one of the big local DJs in Boston was like emceeing the event. They did a trivia game beforehand. Jada and I both won cassettes.
A cassette you could put on your Walkman?
Yes. Okay. Exactly. Yes. And it had the music from the movie on it. And but it was one of those singles cassettes. So it only had 5 minutes of music on each side. But still, we were winners.
You were winners.
So anyway, really great memory of going to see that. Jada, if you're listening, that was amazing. Your mom was an awesome person. I hope you're doing well. We haven't talked in a very long time, but that was such a good movie memory.
That's awesome.
So that's not even the reason I picked this for this week. The reason I picked it is actually because I've been in France for the past 2 weeks for work, and my company doesn't send me to Paris. They send me to Annecy, France, which is the base of the French Alps, and it looks like the provincial town in this movie. So
a quiet village, if you will.
It's a quiet village, and like they've got the old buildings and the cobblestone streets, and there's no cars, it's all pedestrian. There's like streams running through it, and there's the baker, and there's the like boulangerie, like all these things. Oh my God. And like they burst into song every time I walk through. No, it is the most charming place. The way I started describing when I first went there on a business trip was like, oh my God, they sent me to Beauty and the Beast. Like, it's amazing. And then actually last weekend, one of my American colleagues rented a car, and we were like trying to find this gorge that everyone goes to and walks around. They have
Did you find a secret castle in the woods or something?
No, we literally just like rounded a corner and was like, whoa, castle. like unexpected castle. And then we broke into
you did.
it.
You found it.
And then like he got held hostage. I traded my freedom for his. And then there was like a singing teapot. And
you did.
But everyone was so
you
chill
married
about
now?
it. Yeah, no. We decided to go back to the town and have beer and like eat raclette and whatever. But everyone was super chill about it. It was really great. No, literally though, we did find a castle completely out of the blue, like coming out of the woods. It was like, this is why Disney set the movie here. Like,
yeah,
there are just
and I guess that's
random
what happens
castles
in quiet villages in rural France. There's secret castles in the woods. That makes sense. Does it make sense? Yeah.
But so for real, I love this movie. I love Beauty and the Beast. I have so much nostalgia for it. And Jess, if you are about to say anything bad about it, Celine Dion and I will take you out. We're going to curse you for life. You will have My Heart Will Go On stuck in your head till your dying day.
God.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Careful. There is a gypsy Celine Dion curse coming at the end of this episode if you don't like it.
So it's your favorite. Yeah.
Yes. We'll care to give a plot summary.
Okay. I would. Yes, I would care to give a plot summary. I did like it too, but I have some thoughts. I have some notes, but
I'm leading the witness here.
You are. And just so everybody knows, Amanda does not know how she didn't see any of my notes before she I
did not.
Did any of that.
I have a hunch, but
you have a hunch.
Not. We may have some disagreements, and that could be funny. Let's see what happens.
It could be. Yeah. So, I mean, just one bit of context, though, is that I have started watching them with my kids. And in some ways, this somewhat inspired me to us to do this podcast. So I kind of had some preconceived thinking for this movie, as well as a few others that I've seen recently. But for those who haven't seen it recently or don't remember, I want to say, for listening to this podcast, you probably don't need a reminder of the plot, but we're going to go with it. So Beauty and the Beast, it's a Disney classic road to marriage movie, but with Stockholm syndrome and violent mobs. That's essentially what it is.
So much fun.
Yeah. And, the beast was cursed as a boy because he was a brat to a witch who turned him into a beast, and the castle staff turned into furniture until he could hoodwink someone into loving him. And then you have Belle. She's a village girl. She wants to read a book instead of go out with Gaston, who's basically a 1750s version of a high school quarterback from the bad 80s movie. So, and then there's a whole prisoner exchange. There's falling in love. I'm not actually going through the plot because I think this is a
little off to the... You're off the path. You went down the dark path.
I did go down the dark path, but it's a Disney road to marriage movie with Stockholm syndrome. But in all seriousness, aside from that, the music is a masterpiece.
I could challenge the accuracy of that summary, but we're going to just keep moving. There's a lot to unpack with this movie. So I think maybe start with the good.
Yeah, let's start with
the questionable and the plot holes and all the other stuff we love to pick apart. But this movie was groundbreaking for Disney, for movies in general, in so many ways. We mentioned it was the first animated movie ever to get nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. I remember watching the Academy Awards. I remember watching it lose to Silence of the Lambs, which is another movie about a young woman who's fallen in with a monster and has a little bit of Stockholm syndrome. But it wasn't as funny. Silence of the Lambs just didn't have that Disney charm.
It didn't. It wasn't a road to marriage. Yeah.
But they did have Buffalo Bill, which was a whole nother topic for another
episode. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a Best Picture nominee, which was unheard of. This is Disney's first big foray into computer animation. There's only sprinklings of it here, and they did use a little bit of it in Rescuers Down Under, I was reading, although I don't remember that part at all. but they forever had been a very heavy on the hand-drawn animation. Computer technology was developing still. So I would say it gets like a good and a bad on that front, because I think scenes like the ballroom dancing look beautiful. Scenes
Yeah.
like the plates stacked up and Be Our Guest is kind of clunky looking now with all the development and technology we've had.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're first
I
kind of
do
like playing around with the computer animation.
I do remember that. Now that you mention it, it wasn't until just a moment that, yeah, the ballroom scenes, like they did look on the big
Yeah.
screen as, I guess, an 11-year-old or whatever, when it definitely looked different. It was at a grander scale, I guess, with the CGI
Yeah.
or computer animation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I will clarify, yes, Disney had played around with computers before. I don't want to piss off our Indiana Jones bros. Yes, I know about Tron. But yeah, no, this was their first animated computer technology on the big screen. To my memory, the first time they ever tried to venture into getting a pop song played over their end credits.
Mm.
So that Celine Dion version of Beauty and the Beast, it was all over the radio. It was like number one song. It was
in my head right
huge.
now.
Yeah. I'd never seen Disney do that before, but a few years earlier, American Tail had done that with Somewhere Out There. Remember they had
Oh
Linda
yeah,
Ronstadt
I
singing
do.
that? So I think
Yeah.
Disney saw that and was like, wait, we could be making money off the music too?
Ooh.
Oh, like we could have record sales after these movies. 20 years later, we have Let It Go all over the place. Like,
And the Encanto soundtrack, which
oh my
is
God.
actually amazing.
We don't talk about the Encanto soundtrack. And also want to call out, because we love our lady screenwriters, this movie had been stuck in development hell since the 1930s.
I did
They
not know that.
wanted to make this, I think, before Snow White, and
Oh,
just couldn't
wow.
get a script together that actually worked for what they were trying to do. So Linda Wolverton is the screenwriter here. She also wrote The Lion King. She also wrote Mulan. Like there was that streak in the 90s of really good Disney movies. Give that lady an Oscar. She's overdue.
Yeah, I mean, would we call those good ones? I don't know.
The
Maybe
Lion
for a
King.
future episode.
I think The Lion King's pretty decent, and I think Mulan's pretty decent. She didn't have a hand in Pocahontas, so I'm giving her kudos for that.
Okay.
Great writing overall in this movie, and like just a lot of really good things going on. And as you mentioned, the music, Alan Menken, Howard Ashman, it's so good.
It is. I'll come out here as a total musical theater nerd, but I think it's pretty much a masterwork. It's really, really good. So Menken and Ashman, they're brilliant. They're completely brilliant. They did 3 movies together: Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and most of Aladdin, although not the full one, until Howard Ashman sadly died of AIDS. I could only imagine how much better maybe the other movies would have been if he were around, but
they kind of backed away from musicals for a little while after that. I mean, The Lion King was a musical. You've got Elton John. You got a leg up there.
Honestly, that music is not even, doesn't hold a candle to these 3.
Yeah, Pocahontas had terrible songs. Mulan, not.
But I will say, for folks who are interested in this, so Howard Ashman, there's a documentary on Disney called Howard that I highly recommend, and it's about him. And a big fun fact for that is that he wrote Little Shop of Horrors. So you have the same guy who wrote Be Our Guest is the same guy who wrote songs about plants murdering people. And I think that's funny.
As you do.
So, yeah.
I will say, Jess is a musical theater nerd. I am not. I friggin' hate musicals, but I like it here. And I do like it in Little Mermaid, and I like it in Aladdin. So this pairing, like they're phenomenal. They're geniuses.
I love it.
They can take my Wednesday Adam Hart and be like, all right, this intro to Belle, this is pretty damn good.
And it really is. And I think you said the music is really just integrated in the story. So we're going to keep talking about it with all the characters. And to me, the music is so good. And I know I'm like such a cynic, but to me, the question is the music good enough to push this to live up territory? Can it stand on its own in terms of elbowing out all the weird Stockholm syndrome stuff?
We'll talk about it, but I mean, I think the music is, since the music pushes the plot forward so much in this movie in a way that, other times it's very decorative musical numbers going on in the background. In this movie, you need to be listening to what's going on in the songs to really get a full grasp of like, this is how the town works.
I'll just say, like, with my kids, they love the music. They loved it. For the parents listening, the music 100% lives up for kids. I mean, they loved it. when I was talking to my daughter about the movie, and I was like, "Oh, what did you think?" And one, she was mad that I rewatched it without her, and so there's that. And then
Well
two,
played, Lily. Be
I know,
angry. Be
yeah, she
angry.
was mad. So yeah, my daughter who's 11, and then two, she was like, she said, "Ugh, now I have the songs in my head."
Yes. Well, they
So
are
the music is
earworms.
very impactful. It's still
Yes.
great.
I've
It's still
had Be
great.
My Guest stuck in my head since I watched this at 6 a.m. in the morning the other day. Because I'm jet lagged because I got home from France. All right. Normally we break down these movies like kind of by characters and reveal the plot via each character. I think the songs definitely need to be considered here because they're
100%.
part of the characters. We have
Yeah.
a song called Belle. We have a song called Gaston. Like Kill the Beast. That's kind of about the beast.
Kind of about the beast. I mean, we should kill
Pitchforks.
the beast.
Yeah. Even before we talk about Belle, which she's obviously our starting character, but just the opening of this movie, you get a really black screen with Beauty and the Beast written across it, but then you hear that little piano music and they do that slow shot through the woods towards the castle, and you've got, I don't know who this is narrating.
Yeah,
it might be the Beast, honestly, like
yeah,
doing a slightly different voice, but like it gives it this very fairy tale, we're looking at a storybook kind of story, the same way like Edward Scissorhands did, but like much better execution here.
It feels like a bridge movie because a lot of the older Disney movies, like Sleeping Beauty and Snow White, I mean, not in a computer animated way, but they also do that. So this felt like a bridge movie. Like they're still taking some elements from like the old school movies.
Yeah. I think
which
this
were old school
scene,
even then.
this opening scene, I think is still hand drawn. Like they're still,
it's
they
so
haven't
cool.
moved. Yeah, I think they only selectively use the computer animation.
But it definitely looks like
it looks like impressionist paintings, frankly.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the background in this movie is almost a watercolor of different landscapes. It's so pretty. And I really do love like that combo of the piano music and like the very pretty scenery as we hone in on the castle. And then, I mean, he's not an ominous narrator, but like his voice is so deep with such gravitas. You're like, oh shoot, this prince messed up. Like,
yeah, it definitely sets a dramatic tone. I actually didn't remember that from when I was a kid because I was like, oh, is this even darker than I think it's going to be when that first?
It feels really dark from the first shot there.
Yeah.
But then we move away from the telling of the what happened to the prince and move to Belle coming out of her house, walking down the streets of possibly Annecy, France, and she's got her basket and she's tucking her hair behind her ears and crossing over the bridge and burst into song.
Yeah, and it's a good song. The Belle song is
a really good song.
I love it.
You get such a small town, almost like high school mentality. Like we all know each other. We all have opinions on each other. Like, there's a lot of judgment in this town, but it's inescapable. And here we all are having to like live together. So song.
Yeah, song. And it's a great song and it's clever. It kind of moves the plot and you really get to know her, like that she reads, that she doesn't fit in. And that everyone thinks she's pretty, but then they start whispering behind her back.
They think she's weird. Yeah,
they think she's weird, and you get to see that all in like a 4-minute song. And I'll mention, Amanda, I know I said this to you. There's a version of the song called "Hey Girl," and it's basically, and so instead of like bonjour, 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 it's like basically a gay dude being like, "Hey girl," and he's basically like doing snarky commentary.
His
the whole
version
way.
of it makes Belle actually way more friendly with the townspeople, like because he's doing "Hey girl" to like people he's walking by. Like Belle doesn't really talk to anybody other than like she tries to talk to the baker, and then she's got her favorite librarian. But like everyone else, she's just ignoring.
That's true. She's just like weirdly ignoring. Yeah, and in the snarky gay man version, he sings songs like "That bitch with kids, she can't afford them," and
which we were all thinking because she needs 6 eggs and it's too expensive.
Right, that's right.
I randomly saw on Twitter someone just put up a shot of that scene and just the quote was like, "Oh, look, there's Belle singing her daily mean song," and I cannot get that out of my head. Like,
so good.
Did Belle walk through the town every single morning and like mentally insult everybody? Because like They all know what she thinks about them.
Like this provincial way of life.
Like,
Golf.
you people, I am so much better than this.
Yeah, yeah. She literally sings that. I want
Yeah.
more than this provincial life. So
Like,
yeah,
there's the baker over there, like, I'm just trying to sell baguettes. Like, geez, here comes that lady again who hates us all. Oh, fine, here.
yeah. It's a good thing she's pretty, because otherwise, man, I don't
God,
know.
she gets away with a lot because
A
she's pretty
lot,
in this movie, but
clearly.
she is a great character though. Like as a kid, I remember latching onto her like, awesome. She
Yeah.
wants to travel, she wants adventure, she likes to read, like she's into exploring things. Watching this again as an adult, I'm like, she's a little reckless.
Yeah.
Just goes right into a situation where you don't know, you could get killed, but she's like, nope, we're doing this.
She has agency, and I think we like that on this podcast, and
Yeah.
and our female characters. We like agency. She definitely does. The whole like Stockholm syndrome thing is a flaw in my mind. Yeah.
Here's where I'm going to argue against the Stockholm syndrome. And
Yeah,
I
let's
get
do
like,
this.
if you like, the high level takeaway of this movie is you're imprisoned, you found the heart of gold and the guy who's imprisoning you, and you live happily ever after. Is a terrible message to send to people, because people who are in relationships where somebody is being abusive and threatening to break down a door, like that's not going to change normally. And
Right.
this movie shouldn't be sending signals like, oh, just wait it out, they'll be fine. That said, the entire plot of this movie takes place in 48 hours. So is it really Stockholm syndrome so much as like, I just got here, worst day of my life, so much stuff just happened, and then
And now I'm like
the
singing with
next
the
day,
birds with the
oh, it
bees. Yeah.
escalated. It's insane. Like 48 hours.
Yeah.
Like, she goes
I
through the town, great. Her dad disappears into the woods. Okay. Like, Gaston shows up at her house and is fucking creepy. Get out, run into the field, run for your life, lady. And then ends up in this castle, and then negotiates her father's freedom, and then like is brought to a room that's kind of fancy, and she realizes the wardrobe talks. We're all on the same day here. They say, be our guest. Great. She goes exploring in the West Wing when she was specifically told not to go there. Beast chased her out of the castle. We're still on the same day here. Like,
I
she's
know.
riding a horse in the woods. Like, on and on it goes. Like, one friggin' day. Like,
I know. I guess you're right.
the busiest day ever.
It's not technically Stockholm syndrome. I think that stuff goes over the heads of kids. I mean, as an adult watching it now, it does bother me. And even I talked to a couple parents before recording. I texted one of my friends, and she's like, yeah, not my favorite. Don't love the whole prisoner thing.
Yeah.
And it's not just because we're parents with kids and we're clutching our pearls. It's just sort of like, really? In 48 hours, you're gonna fall for this guy who is creepily like, you must promise to stay here forever. But I know we're talking about Belle, but one thing my daughter said, and maybe this is a good thing or a bad thing. I was like, well, why'd you like this movie? And she's like, I really like that the Beast was a villain, but then he became good.
Yeah.
And she liked that. And, is that a good message? I don't know. But it's definitely appealing. I mean, it's appealing that there's the idea that people could change.
I love movies where the bad guy becomes the good guy, or like the bad guy joins forces with the good guy, like all the different variations of that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a trope, but yeah, I do love when that happens. I totally get what you and the other parents are saying about don't teach people to hang in there with someone who's a little toxic.
Right. If they say you're not allowed to leave, get the F out of there.
Probably not. Yeah. They're probably not going to change.
As adults, we're overthinking it. And I think, from a kid's perspective, they like the idea that Belle could be different, that she could be smart, that someone likes her for those things. Yeah. And that she has the power to change things around her. As an adult, I know I'm overthinking it because like it does still resonate for girls. It's just like a little weird. Yeah. Even if she doesn't quite resonate with parents anymore, she definitely resonates with kids.
I think too, we have to consider like the original fairy tale that this is based on is the story of she is, I think, sold by her father to go be the prisoner at this guy's place.
Even worse.
And they didn't have cute furniture servants. There were invisible servants. It was just like her and him in a dark castle with some candles. This comes from an era where it was, I want to say, encouraging women to stick it out, but like that's what the original fairy tale was. It's just like, you're going to tough this out. You're going to work your magic and change the guy. I think this is maybe your best case interpretation of an original fairy tale that was like, no, just stay married.
Yeah, no, it probably is. And she does have agency, because she's not going to stay there and take it. I mean, she's just
she
like,
leaves the same day.
Right. But she's like, you have to have manners.
Pushes back. She
pushes back.
She pushes back.
Yeah, she's like, I'm not coming to dinner. I'm not doing these things. I'm going to go to the whatever wing and destroy your flower because I'm going to do that. So, that stuff is good. You're almost convincing me. I mean, if this
all
is,
right,
this jury is almost convinced, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think best case scenario on what the original story was.
Before we move on, the one thing I'll mention, again, getting back to the music, is there is this small little reprisal of the Belle song.
I love that so much.
It's so good. Yeah, I like it more now, even as an adult, and appreciate it as a musical theater nerd, maybe. But by the way, I can't sing for shit. I just like musicals. I don't sing them. So it's after Gaston basically ambushes her to try to get her to marry him.
And I think her moves in that particular scene, because he comes right into her house.
That's
and
true.
He's like
and
hitting
she's
her in
like
the corner, and she's like negotiating her way out of a hostage situation with him. Like
that's true. She kind of is.
Yeah, like she's diplomatic and knows I cannot say yes to this, but also I cannot anger him. So we are just going to move him towards the door gracefully and then compliment him and then goodbye.
And then goodbye. And then I'm going to slam the door in your face.
Yeah, I'm like, goodbye.
No, you're right. Actually, that's a good point. It was good. And that's a good message, girls. But after he leaves, there's a little reprisal of her song about, the village and wanting more in this provincial life. And it's good because she's, talks about from once it might be grand to have someone understand. It's an I want song. I know there's the I want songs in all these musicals, but this one's sort of hidden in here. And it's really good. And I think it does send a good message. Like, I'm not going to settle for you, Gaston.
Yeah. No, and it shows she's a little lonely and that she is like, I want adventures. Go out there, find that hidden castle.
Yeah.
Get taken prisoner. It'll be great.
Get prisoner, maybe.
See what happens.
Give it 48 hours. We'll see.
We should talk about the Beast.
Yeah, I think he sucked. The Beast sucked. I mean, it's going to be hard to redeem the Beast to me.
You'd be happy if it was like Adam Driver playing him as Kylo Ren. Like he's just a mopey, like emo beast a little bit.
What if it was she?
I'm just gonna be sad and depressed. My tower over here.
You know what? Adam Driver would do a good job as the Beast.
Wait, so I was, as we were getting ready for this episode, was looking up the other voice actors they considered for this. They have Robbie Benson playing the Beast. I think his voice is actually spot on for this, but they were considering, ready? Mandy Patinkin. So
would have been great.
Inigo Montoya there. It's Fishburne.
Lawrence Fishburne also would have been great. I don't know.
Can he sing? The Beast doesn't sing though, does he?
He has like one dumb song, sort of.
Oh, you're right. He sings something there that wasn't there before a little bit. But the one that threw me off was they were considering Val Kilmer.
That is a dark horse.
That I would have, even as a kid, I would have been distracted by that, I think, because I knew him from Willow.
Yeah, Willow. And this is pre-Batman, but yeah, it's
pre-Batman.
Yeah,
pre-Batman, but he's already
Willow.
been like Iceman from Top Gun.
Totally.
I like his voice is very distinct.
It would have been a little silly. A good choice to not have Val Kilmer.
I think I just would have been distracted by it. Like I don't know Robbie Benson's work that well, and I thought his voice was like the right level of moody, sulky, basically Kylo Ren. He was doing a Kylo Ren before there was Kylo Ren.
Yeah, but not as good. Not as good. He kind of sucked. Like he gets mean and he yells and he's like, "You'll come join me for dinner," and he throws a fit and then he gets like all sad. "Oh, I was mean and maybe I shouldn't have done that." And so like, I don't know. I guess I have a little sympathy for him sometimes, and clearly my daughter did, but I'm sort of like, "Oh, you suck."
I mean, in the context of this movie, like he doesn't have parents for some reason because it's a Disney movie.
It's a Disney movie.
The Disney princes never have parents.
Right.
So he's kind of being raised by the furniture.
Yes, he is. Essentially raised by like a Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah, no, you've got like a teapot giving him like motherly advice. So yeah, I get he's not socialized properly. And like there's a version of this, if you see the version of Beauty
I
and the
have seen the
Beast.
Broadway version.
So there's a scene where Belle is teaching him how to read,
Oh, I
which
don't remember that.
always, it stuck with me because it was just like, wow, like how undeveloped is this guy? He's really just like stomping around a castle and the furniture scolds him occasionally, but like he's not having social interactions. He doesn't have any peers. He's not going to school and like getting bullied into behaving himself, or he's not bullying anyone else. He just is an anomaly in this castle until another human shows up.
Yeah.
So
And I guess
don't know.
points for getting his shit together, given all the things you just said. But he's also just like a rich entitled brat who then
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And you know how we like to make fun of rich people.
Yeah, we've had a lot of class warfare on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess like it's beside the point. I mean, a lot of times in these Disney movies, I feel like the prince is often not the best character. They're usually not the
No, they're
star.
usually like very milquetoast. Not a lot of personality coming in. He has a personality. It's not a great one. It's just anger and depression.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is he up in the West Wing logging onto Reddit and like angrily replying to people?
He's an internet troll.
Oh my God. You put a guy in that situation.
I mean, he's just okay. He's like, I mean, maybe
he's not bringing a lot. Like Belle's bringing a lot more into the relationship.
And honestly, the furniture is bringing more into
the furniture is really pushing this.
Yeah, the furniture.
They're so sick of being candlesticks.
I'd rather hang out with the furniture.
Yeah, you get some really fun.
And I think I'd rather hang out with furniture, generally speaking, than the Beast. So I should out myself again as like the resident lesbian on the podcast, but I don't get it.
I will say I started watching this at 6 a.m. because I was jet lagged, and my husband joined me right at the tail end where the Beast is battling Gaston, and we get a good Wilhelm scream and the classic Disney death where nobody actually killed him; he just fell to his death.
Convenient.
But then the Beast is dying and then gets transformed, and Belle takes a moment and is like actually a little off put, like, wait, he's a human now, like, huh. And my husband just goes, "Oh, she's into furries." It's like, well, like Belle wanted adventure. She's going to be at that furries convention in Pittsburgh next year.
Oh my God, she's going to make the Beast dress up.
Yeah. He just for old times.
For old times' sake, just
put the tail back
on the fur. Yeah.
So yeah. Beast is a little bit of a wet blanket.
And honestly, going back to the musical thing, he does not have great songs. Like he's part of that.
Given one verse of a song.
He has that one verse of the song, something there that wasn't there before, a song that Angela Lansbury sings. But yeah, he doesn't have a song. Yeah. I bet if it was redone today, he would have a song. Lin-Man better get on that.
So lonely. Just kidding. That's Kim Jong-il's song from Team America World Police.
I mean, you can go in that direction. But yeah.
It's a whole actually that movie has a very similar plot where you got your lonely dictator kidnapping a woman.
It's a thing, apparently. Lonely. Maybe they got the idea from this movie.
All right, enough of the Beast. Let's talk about Gaston. You found an internet thread arguing that Belle would be better off with Gaston. Do we want to explore this narrative at all? Because
I mean, we can.
He's awful, but like funny.
He is funny. When we rewatched it a couple times with my kids, my son who's 6 and he was probably 5 at the time, he thought that the Gaston scenes were funny. Like I don't think he was really following the plot, but the whole slapstick, like Gaston stomps around, he shoots guns and he has muscles and he just is silly and he's like throwing guys left and right in the bar, and my son loved it. But and his songs are funny too. Like Gaston's songs are great. Oh, what a guy.
I mean, it occurred to me as an adult, that first song in the tavern where everyone in the tavern is singing his praises.
Like the bro club. Yeah.
But it crossed my mind, like he, over the years, has probably beaten up every single one of these guys. Probably. And they're just in a place where it's like, just sing a stupid song. Like, just make them happy.
He's like, I eat eggs for breakfast and I have a hairy chest, which we know that I'm not into. I don't get it. Ladies, I don't get it. So getting back to somebody made again, we're like, social media trolling here. Someone made an argument that maybe Gaston was the better choice. And the argument was, just for the sake of discussion, was that Gaston wants kids. He sort of likes Belle for who she is. I mean, and by who she is, pretty for the most part.
Just likes the way she looks.
just likes the way she looks. And he's fun at parties. I mean, basically that was the argument.
No,
They made
and the
of this song.
argument then delved into like, hey, the French Revolution is coming, and the
Oh,
Beast
that's
seems
right.
like an
Yeah.
aristocrat, and he's probably going to lose his head in a few years.
Right. And Gaston is probably going to lead the mob to the castle where
Well, no,
Belle
he fell off a
lives.
cliff.
Oh, wait, right, but someone like him
Yeah.
is and like do the head chopping. You're totally right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot the theory went into
No,
all
I
of
mean,
that.
I don't think Belle would be good with Gaston. So I don't think you can make the argument that she's better off with Gaston. I mean, she'd be better off in a convent with than either of
Yeah,
them.
I just want to be
Probably.
very
Although
clear
that
that
takes away the whole freedom thing
I am
too.
not
I don't
pro
know.
Gaston. I
This
am
is a
not pro.
tough era to be a lady. Like none of these guys are great.
Yeah, I am not pro Gaston. I am not in the
Yeah.
camp of this funny thread making the case for Gaston. Not in favor. He probably seems fun to have a beer with, but we know where that gets you, people.
Oh,
So, yeah.
he does have one of my favorite lines in any of the songs is the reprise of Gaston where he says, LeFou, I'm afraid I've been thinking. LeFou's just like a dangerous pastime.
I know.
Like that's great lyrics right there.
Yeah,
That whole
it's
scene,
funny.
the whole scene is so like merry and charming. But yeah, this time watching it, I was like, these guys are all afraid of him and have probably had multiple wedgies when they were in grade school. And
like he does ultimately like lead a mob to go try and kill
oh
the
god,
beast.
yeah, no, he's awful.
Yeah. I hesitate to say that Gaston's, I mean, he sucks, but he's kind of fun. I mean, he's fun to watch. His songs are good.
He's
And
entertaining because we don't have to
he's
interact
entertaining.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't have to marry him,
Yeah.
but he has a little bit more dimension. He's funny.
He's
On
funny,
some
but
level.
he's also conniving and threatening. And
He is. Yeah, but it was like a
generally a
necessary
bad
plot point.
person. And like it came across really clearly to me as a kid, like instantly. It was like, oh, look at this, like they're drawing him in a handsome manner, which they usually don't do for the villains in Disney, but it's immediate. You're like, oh, he's terrible.
Yeah, he's terrible. Yeah. It's almost like he's sort of an exaggeration of like handsome. His like cleft in his chin is like pronounced.
No one has a swell cleft in their chin like Gaston.
Yeah, right. No one. His hairy chest is super hairy. His muscles are ridiculous. He's like kind of a caricature.
Yeah. I will. All right. So during COVID, when I was working for my previous company, you can come into the office, but we advise you don't. If you do, you got to clean the hell out of everything you touch. And the woman who was going in every day and keeping the office together put up all these signs of Gaston all over the office. It was no one cleans like Gaston, quarantines like Gaston.
That's really funny.
Tries to fight off COVID-19 like Gaston. It was everywhere. And it was so funny. Like I didn't go in often, but like when I did, and you're trying to get some tea out of the kitchen, and it was just like, oh, Gaston.
That's actually really good.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I guess you would be a really good, like, terrifying bureaucrat.
Yeah, there you go.
So the scenes, I think the key scenes that he's a part of, he leads the mob to storm the castle. You know, he stages a wedding before he proposes to Belle.
Which we learned from coming to America, you don't do that.
Good point. Don't be a Daryl. Don't be a Daryl.
Don't be a Daryl.
Gaston.
Yeah.
I totally forgot about that. And we reviewed that
Yeah.
for folks who haven't listened to that episode. Yeah, so he's a part of some of the big scenes and, you know, obviously is a key plot thing. And I'd say he's overall just sort of fun.
He's fun, but he's also like, I remember as a kid that scene where he's whipping up the mob and they're going to go storm the castle. Like that was probably my first movie that was depicting a mob mentality and just the ability of him to whip them up into a frenzy in like a sentence. He's going to come for your children. And like everyone just flips the switch and they're all on the same page. Like, oh shoot, we got to go attack the castle now. Because
do you feel like that had different, I feel like I wasn't sure if it was just had more resonance for me as an adult or just had more resonance for me in the year 2023.
I remember it hitting me as a kid. This is a very unfair thing to be saying, and it's not the truth. And everybody's reacting very strongly to it. So it's not fair, was my child's impression of that scene. Going through college and studying elements of mob mentality over history. I had to study the Holocaust for my like senior thesis. The way people kind of lose their own rational thinking in a moment like that is being depicted very well here. Like I think The writer did an excellent job of just being like, this is how easy it is to say something about like your children are in danger, and everybody just loses their mind, goes nuts. And
right. It had a different resonance for me as an adult. And I didn't really think much of it, honestly, as a kid, the way that maybe you did. But as an adult, I'm just like, oh, we've seen this play out actually in real life.
Yeah. And I think the screenwriter was totally aware of that. Whereas like kid me was just like, that's not true and this isn't fair.
Yeah. So speaking of not fair, another key plot point and scene that I'm curious what your kid reaction was, like yourself as a kid, and then rewatching it, is the whole prisoner exchange between Maurice and Belle and the Beast. Break that down for me.
I think even as a kid, there's a plot hole here because Belle does exactly the same thing Maurice does. She just wanders into this castle and like the servants kind of like push her in a direction. She gets off because she's pretty, and Maurice gets thrown into a jail cell. The prisoner exchange never made sense to me, even as a kid, because it was like, she just did the same exact thing. How is she like negotiating? Like,
right, like where are the rules here?
Like, why? Why is he a trespasser and she's here to like negotiate his release? Like,
right, and like also,
the same
Beast, why do you need a prisoner? Yeah, I know that's the whole point of the movie, but I was like, it was weird to me as an adult.
Yeah, that never lined up for me as a kid and as an adult. What I did notice this time was Maurice is saying everything that he should be saying. Like, he is the most rational person in this scene, in many of the scenes, despite the fact that he's the one they're threatening to throw in the insane asylum. He is telling her she's gonna leave, get out of here. I'm old, don't sacrifice yourself for me. Everything he's saying is the right response, and Belle and the Beast are kind of like, nope, this is what we agree to. Just like,
we got to have a movie. So,
like, oh, come on.
My kids just sort of accepted the rules for what they were. And I think I did too as a kid. Like, okay, that makes sense. We're just going to do a little prisoner exchange. So, okay.
We've watched a couple of movies for this podcast where there's breaking and entering into a mysterious castle going on. Like, it doesn't always work out.
It doesn't work out. Don't do that, kids. And then once she's in the castle, I'd say one of my favorite scenes is when she refuses to have dinner with the Beast and Belle basically wanders down. It's like, I'm hungry. And, Cogsworth and Lemire, is that Lemire?
Yes.
Basically insist on doing like a full
musical production. It's amazing.
It's still good. It still sort of dazzles even as an adult. I loved it.
Well, let's talk about the furniture.
Kids love the furniture. They love the surprises. The dog is the footstool. There's the wardrobe. They loved it. I mean, and it still works.
It's such a fun way to do it. I remember, because I was reading the fairy tale as a kid, but then bringing it back out for this episode, I think the servants were like, couldn't see them in the book. Like, they were ghosts almost. So things would move themselves around the room, but there was no interacting, no talking. So turning people into the furniture item that they most closely resemble, and then giving them the ability to hop around the castle and make tea and attack a mob and all kinds of fun stuff. It's so much cooler than what the original fairy tale had for these servants. Yeah. And it gives her, it gives Belle some buddies. And
yeah, they're essentially the animals in the woods that talk to Snow White or type of thing. And it's funny, and Cogsworth and Lemire. They're fun. They're like a fun duo.
The two of them, the way they sass each other is so funny. Like, they're one of the great comic duos from any of the Disney movies, I think. So we got
Jerry Orbach, who plays Lemire.
Oh, he's great. So good. So good. I sent you that clip of him performing Be Our Guest at the Oscars that year with the tagline, worst episode of Law and Order ever. They don't solve anything. But yeah,
they don't solve anything.
I know him from Law and Order, but I remember my mom telling me that he was kind of a sex symbol at the time, that like women her age really liked Jerry Orbach singing, that he used to do all these shows.
He was one of the originals in the Fantastics, I think, is how he got, which was a long-running Broadway show. And also, we'll say, if the musical theater people, if you do watch the documentary for Howard, they do show the behind the scenes when Jerry Orbach and Angela Lansbury, they all come into the studio with a live orchestra to basically record their songs. Oh, so cool. It's kind of fun to watch them record the songs that It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you've got David Ogden Stiers from MASH. Do you remember him? He was a very uptight guy on MASH.
I have no idea who that is.
watch an episode and you'll be like, oh, that's Cogsworth. Like it just
Yeah.
as the uptight clock, the
Yeah.
two of them fighting with each other
Yeah.
constantly. Like their final scene in this movie is them having a slapping fight while ballroom dancing's going on. It's just like, yeah, they're gonna just keep doing this to each other for eternity. It's such a love-hate bromance. It's adorable.
It is adorable. It still works.
Cogsworth, I remember as a kid thinking this character is like so by the book and not
Yeah.
fun, but he's got all the dad jokes in this movie.
He's funnier than I remember.
Yeah, I do remember him getting laughs in the theater as a kid. And if it's not Baroque, don't fix it. Like,
oh yeah,
I remember kids laughing at that. And we don't even know what Baroque furniture looks like.
I laughed at that rewatching it.
Yeah,
right.
it's like that's such a dad joke, but
it's
funny. There's a scene after it snows, day two.
Day two within the 48 hours. Yeah.
Where Beast is like, oh, I should do something nice for Belle. And Cogsworth just chimes in. He's like, there's always flowers, chocolates, promises you don't intend to keep. And I remember that getting a laugh.
It's funny. And like, they're funny. My kids thought they're funny. Mrs. Potts, who's Angela Lansbury, and Chip, they're also funny.
Yeah.
Like, that whole dynamic. Also, but part of me is like, Mrs. Potts, first of all, are you like 100 years old, but you have all these children?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Another plot hole, perhaps. The way this spell works on aging people, or maybe Mrs. Potts is Chip's grandmother. I don't know. When they're turned into humans at the end, she looks very old, and Chip is like 7.
I know.
But also, the spell has been going on for 10 years, according to the timeline given in Be Our Guest. So are they having teacup procreation in that cabinet there? Or do the furniture...
We're talking about Disney movie, but we've already talked about like furries. And now
furries, teapot
procreation. Yeah.
You see, when two teacups love each other...
you get a little teacup.
You get a smaller teacup. Still doesn't make sense to me. Did the furniture freeze in time, but the Beast is aging up to age 21? But basically, why does Chip look like an 8-year-old and Mrs. Potts look like she's 80?
She does look like she's 80. She essentially just looks like an animated Angela Lansbury.
As my mom would say, sturdier. She is sturdier than Angela Lansbury.
My kids also got a kick out of the final scene when the furniture basically defends the castle. And it's slapstick all the way, and they're defending the castle against the mob. And of course, it's funny. The mob walks in, everything's quiet, and then all of a sudden, the wardrobe drawer knocks somebody out. And it's all funny. And it's still good, actually.
There's one thing in there that I'd forgotten about that actually made me cringe a little bit. Various people from the town are attacking various furniture elements, and they're getting poked in the butt, and they're getting hot tea poured on them, and very medieval warfare, but like nobody gets hurt, except there's one guy who's pulling all the feathers out of the feather duster.
Yeah,
but he's like screaming. Yeah. It just gives off this very rapey vibe, and you're like,
of course it does.
He's pulling feathers out of a feather duster. Why? Like,
I know it is.
What kind of weird sicko are you that you just like making a feather duster scream? Because like this isn't even sexual, really. You could be plucking a chicken right now, but you seem to be into the way this feather duster is screaming. So
yeah, when you stop and think about it, when I rewatched it again, I was like, that's just a weird detail.
Yeah, it's just a few seconds, but it's ugh.
Yeah.
Everything else about that scene, though, is pretty funny.
The one last furniture thing, the chef, it's such a throwaway. It's just as funny to me as a parent. So basically when Belle refuses to have dinner with the Beast, and of course, this whole meal was prepared. So the chef, who's, I don't know, a toaster or something. I don't know what he is.
He's a stove. Yeah.
He's a stove. And he's like so angry. I worked so hard on this and no one's going to eat it. And I'm like, oh my God, every parent, every night at dinner. And if for some reason that made me laugh.
That hit you as an adult, like, oh.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally.
Be mad, stove.
Small thing.
You earned it, stove man.
You earned it, stove man. Yeah, that I thought was funny. I think other key scenes, there's a whole love montage, which I guess we're getting into the cringy, which takes place in this 48 hours. And
48 hours.
Yeah, it's set to the song that Angela Lansbury sings as Mrs. Potts. There was something there that wasn't there before, and they're feeding birds and they're plucking
making
flowers,
snowmen,
and
charming.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of lame. I'm such a jerk. I guess there's an excuse for a good song, so we'll do that. That's fine. Yeah,
there's something there that wasn't there quite yesterday because I've only just met this guy 12 hours ago.
Yeah.
And then inside the castle, I noticed for the first time, there's famous paintings hanging on the
I
wall
didn't
that they
notice
just
that.
when they're like banging on her door trying to get her to come out for dinner, the
Yeah.
painting girl with pearl earring is like right across the hall from
Oh,
her
I didn't
room.
notice that. That was not on Cogsworth's tour.
No, not that we heard anyway. I mean, he might have been like, this famous.
Right, right.
When you look in Beast's room, his West Wing there, like he is ripping apart like famous paintings. Like there's like Rembrandts that are shredded apart and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like, wow, what's going on here?
So we've touched on this before, but I do want to like touch on the timeline because it was
Yeah.
like really bizarre when I rewatched it with my kids. Elaine and I, my wife and I were like, wait a minute, hold on a second. The curse hat is like for 10 years.
They say in Be Our Guest, it's been going on for 10 years.
Right. So 10 years.
And
but
then
somehow it's like
when the prince turns 21, the last petal will drop. So he
Right.
was 11.
11. So it
when
feels
this started.
yeah, it was 11 when he started, and you're like, okay, so this curse started when he was 11, and he's somehow master of a castle.
Pubescent, yeah.
Also, the pictures or the paintings of him around, he definitely looks like 20. Is he frozen in time? Was he 11? I was like so confused about the timeline, and I don't know why it bothered me, but for some reason,
No, it's a plot hole. It's a total plot hole.
And not to excuse it, but yeah, 11-year-olds are gonna say stupid shit. So what? A witch curses him and his whole staff, I guess.
Based on him being a sassy 11-year-old and not letting her in.
I don't know who this witch is, but I'd like to have a conversation.
I feel like, from his point of view, he probably opened the door and was like, stranger danger, my parents are dead. I'm not letting this random person in my house. Ugh.
I know. So the castle just disappears from public memory in the woods. Like nobody knows it's there.
I'm shocked that Gaston has not found this castle during his hunting trips. It looks like it's only a 2 or 3 hour hike from the center of town.
I know.
In this 48-hour window, like they're dashing back and forth between Belle's house and the castle and back to Belle's house and then back to the castle. How did nobody know there was a castle there?
Right.
Like, are they all subjects of the beast and they just don't even know it?
To me too, because they referred to him as a prince. So I didn't get that. And we've already talked about the fact that the whole thing takes place in 48 hours. But it's also just like, oh, okay, you've lost your freedom, Belle. So why don't you, come to dinner with the beast? And she's hysterical. And the wardrobe and the teapot are like, that sucks that you lost your dad and your freedom. But why don't we put you in a nice fancy dress? That'll make you feel better.
You'll feel better and you're so brave, and
it's just like a little weird.
Yeah. More than the beast, I feel like the furniture is pushing for her to fall in love with him.
Because it wasn't their fault.
No.
That they got cursed.
Lumiere is the one who keeps bringing it up from the get-go. He's like, it's a girl. She's here to break the spell. Ongoing. He's like, has she broken it yet? Are we there yet? Like, come on.
Because those poor working class servants were like, my asshole boss, master, whatever they're called,
stuck a candlestick forever
because he was a dick to a witch once when he was
11.
Yeah. Like, no wonder the staff is like, get your shit together, beast. The one other thing I think to mention is the ending scene. Obviously, there's the ending scene. Gaston falls off and dies and whatever.
Great Wilhelm scream right there. So girly.
It was good.
Beautiful.
It was good.
Oh, my husband was like, why wasn't there like a sound when he hit the bottom of that ravine? I was like, this isn't a Roadrunner cartoon, but it could have been. Yeah, he wanted a splash sound or something.
There's still a little bit like, and then this just ends with a wedding. I mean, the whole road to marriage, which is sort of, that's why I think it's kind of a bridge movie between earlier era Disney's and then a more modern era. But although they still do it in a more modern era, but it's like, okay, we end now she's in a pretty dress and da da da. So I'm just being a cynic, but that was my, okay.
Do we want to rate?
Yeah, why don't you kick us off with that?
Well, all right. The first rating is how this lives up to our expectations as adults. And I'm giving this a 9.
What? And so wait, tell people it's a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being garbage, 10 being Princess Bride or just the best. And what? You're giving it a 9?
Love this movie. I think it holds up. I think it is still beautiful. I think the movie looks great. I think the script is amazing. I think the music is awesome. I'm voting 9. So this is my highest score ever. I still love this movie. I will watch it again.
I'm gonna go lower. I know.
You always do.
Go lower because but it's not too low. I know you have a spreadsheet in front of you. I'm going to go with 6 because I think I could be convinced for a 7 just for the music. But I just want to be very clear that the 6 is entirely comprised of the soundtrack. It's not a bad movie. I don't think it's the best of this era. So that's why I'm giving it a 6 because
Okay, so this is like a comparative rating to like Aladdin and the
I
Little
can't
Mermaid.
help but do that because I
Okay.
rewatched. Yeah, but not just that, but also rewatching it again. I was like, music's still wonderful. Movie itself, So I'm giving it a 6.
All
So
right. Agree to disagree. A
yeah,
lot.
I think yeah.
You're gonna have My Heart Will Go On stuck in your head if you
Uh,
go low on the kids rating too. I'm just telling you, Celine and I
so
have a curse.
you're the one with the spreadsheet. 15
Yes,
has to be relatively high for us for an adult rating.
it is. Yeah, this is one of our highest ever.
And so the next rating is same score, 1 to 10.
Does it live up for kids?
Right, with the intended audience, which is definitely kids. Should I go first or should I?
Go first. Nope,
You usually go first though.
I do.
Yeah, you should do it. You go first.
All right. I'm giving this an 8 for kids. I think it's still a lot of fun to watch. I think your son picked up on it's funny to watch furniture beat people up and that the songs are great and it's a lot of fun and a bit of chaos going on in this movie and it's great. So I say 8 for kids.
Yeah. So I also say 8 for kids.
Hey.
Yeah, I think that the music, my kids did watch it again after we rewatched it, so like they clearly liked it. I realize I'm judging this by just like my own kids, but there's enough there for sure for kids to enjoy this, and the music's still good, and all the bad stuff that we've been picking apart just doesn't even like hit their radar.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So that's a 16 for kids. That also has to be really high for us.
That's the all-time highest for any kid
rating
ever.
And I'm pretty damn harsh with these ratings. But
you are. Yeah.
So what's our total score then, Miss?
Is this going to sway you on whether it lives up? We're at 31. This is the highest score for any movie. Really? Just over Edward Scissorhands. Yep.
I'm not sure it deserves it. All right. So usually
fighting words.
So the final thing for the listeners who maybe this is your first episode, we both have to agree to deem it officially living up for the podcast. Very intense stakes here, obviously not. But
I don't know. We're putting a curse on you if this doesn't live up. I've talked to Celine Dion. She's ready. She's waiting.
In my notes, I write down the score, I think. I know. And I write down whether I think it lives up. And sometimes I feel like I could be swayed one way or the other. In this case, I didn't write it down. I mean, I'm not sure. And I was kind of like, I'm kind of a no, but I was hoping you would convince me. But why don't you make your case? Or tell me, does it live up? Do you think it lives up? We both have to agree.
From my point of view, yes, it lives up. I think despite the high level, we've talked about the Stockholm syndrome, and there's some plot holes. I think this is still a very good movie, very good female protagonist, phenomenal music, looks beautiful, and it was nominated for Best Picture. Not that the Academy gets it right every time, but
they don't.
Yeah, this absolutely lives up.
I mean, my question from the beginning was, is the music enough to have it live up? And I actually think it is. And I have to say I'm swayed by our conversation, but I'm also swayed by just like, my kids loved it.
Your kids watched it again.
They watched it again. Did I really want to watch it again? I don't know, but it lives up. It's
okay.
It lives up. So I think for the first time ever, you've talked me off the cliff.
I was threatening you with Celine Dion. So
well, congratulations, Disney. It's very important that you live up according to
the trophy that will make up for them losing the Academy Award. To
right?
Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah. Who needs Silence of the Lambs? Which we might.
The Live Up podcast said we live up. That's what's important here.
So I'd love to hear if folks agree, disagree. What did we miss? What did we get right? What did we get wrong? Maybe hold on the internet trolling.
We love constructive criticism.
Yeah, and things
that's not what the internet's good at, it turned out.
Right. And we've gotten constructive criticism before, which is great, and we share it on the podcast. So let us know at Live Up Pod on all the socials, except the Tickety Talk, although I have a secret Tickety Talk account, which we can talk about later. At Live Up Pod on all the socials, at liveuppod@gmail. Let us know what you think. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.